The first plasma bombs fell on Munich at 14:37 GMT, turning the Bavarian sky into a writhing curtain of green fire. Lieutenant Commander Vasquez watched the atmospheric ionization cascade. Through her targeting display, her knuckles wide against the command console aboard the orbital defense platform Prometheus. "Jesus Christ," whispered her tactical officer, Petty Officer Nakamura, as the energy readings spiked beyond their instrument's maximum range. "They're not just bombing the cities, they're bombing the atmosphere." The hegemony had arrived 3 days ago, 17 dreadnoughts materializing from hyperspace like metal tumors against the star field. No communication, no demands, just systematic annihilation of every major population center on Earth, starting with the most densely packed urban areas. But this was different. This was worse. "Commander," came the voice of Admiral Kovac from Terra Command, crackling through the interference. "We're seeing atmospheric destabilization across 40% of the European continent. The plasma bombardment is creating a feedback loop that literally setting our sky on fire." Vasquez studied the tactical display the alien fleet maintained. Perfect formation, their wedge-shaped vessels black as obsidian against the stars. Each ship was easily 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapon arrays that pulse with the same sickly green energy. Now consuming Earth's atmosphere, they move with mechanical precision, adjusting their bombardment patterns to maximize atmospheric damage. "How long before full cascade failure?" she asked. 12 hours, maybe less," Nakamura replied, his voice tight. "The ionization is spreading. If they keep this up, they'll strip away our entire atmospheric envelope." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of life support systems and the distant rumble of the planet dying below them. Vasquez had commanded Prometheus for 8 years, defending Earth's orbital space from pirates and rogue asteroids. She'd never faced an enemy like this one that didn't want to conquer, but to erase. "Commander," came another voice from the communication station. "We're receiving a transmission from everywhere. It's coming from all 17 ships simultaneously." The main screen flickered, resolving into the image of something that might have been a face if faces were made of shifting geometric patterns and metallic surfaces. When it spoke, the voice was a harmony of electronic tones that seemed to bypass the ears and resonate directly in their skulls. "Inferior species, your planet will be cleansed. Your atmosphere will be purged. Your existence will be corrected." The transmission cut out, leaving only the sound of plasma fire crackling through the upper atmosphere. "Corrected," Vasquez repeated, tasting the word. "They're not here to conquer us. They're here to sterilize us." She pulled up the latest casualty reports. 43 million dead in the first wave. London, Paris, Berlin, Rome all gone, consumed by the green fire that now spread across the sky like some cosmic infection. The hegemony's weapons didn't just destroy buildings. They destabilized the very air, turning Earth's protective envelope into a weapon against itself. "Ma'am," Nakamura said quietly, "Terra Command is requesting immediate tactical assessment. They want to know if we can mount a defense." Vasquez looked at the 17 alien behemoths, each one outmassing her entire defense platform by a factor of 50. Their shields flickered with the same green energy that was killing Earth's sky, and their weapons systems showed no signs of strain despite the continuous bombardment. "Tell them we're going to try," she said, "and give me a direct line to the Pyrrhus. If we're going to die, we're going to make these bastards remember why they should have stayed home." The tactical display updated, showing the approach vectors of her small fleet of defense platforms, 6 destroyers, and 3 heavy cruisers against 17 alien dreadnoughts. The odds were impossible. The enemy was clearly superior in every measurable way. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had chosen to fight humanity in Earth's orbit, where every piece of space debris, every defunct satellite, every chunk of rock became a potential weapon. And humanity had spent centuries learning how to turn the sky itself into a weapon. "All stations, prepare for engagement," Vasquez announced. "They want to see what our skies can do. Let's show them what happens when humans get angry." The first human attack came not from the defense platforms, but from the debris field itself. Commander Vasquez had spent the last 3 hours turning Earth's orbital graveyard into a minefield, using magnetic grapples to position defunct satellites and spent rocket stages in calculated trajectories around the hegemony fleet. "Initiating Kessler Protocol," she announced, her finger hovering over the activation switch. "All units, prepare for debris storm." The explosion wasn't nuclear, it was kinetic. 17,000 pieces of orbital junk, from coffee can-sized satellites to defunct space station modules, all suddenly accelerated by hidden thruster packages toward the alien fleet. The cascade effect was immediate and devastating. The lead hegemony dreadnought, Purifier's Edge, tried to adjust its position, but the sheer volume of incoming debris overwhelmed its point defense systems. Chunks of metal and ceramic slammed into its shields at 17 kilometers per second, each impact releasing energy equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. Direct hits on targets 7, 12, and 15, reported Nakamura, his voice electric with excitement. Shield fluctuations across the entire enemy formation, but the hegemony's response was swift and brutal. The second wave of plasma bombardment struck not at Earth's surface, but at the orbital platforms themselves. Vasquez watched in horror as the Pyrrhus took a direct hit, its forward section vaporizing in a bloom of green fire. "Captain Hendricks is gone," came the report from communications. "The Pyrrhus is gone." The alien fleet began to move, their formation tightening as they adapted to the new threat. The geometric patterns on their hulls shifted and flowed, weapons arrays rotating to track the human vessels. When they fired again, it was with surgical precision. The destroyer Rabid Dog exploded first, its hull breached by a lance of plasma that punched clean through both shield and armor. The Steadfast followed seconds later, caught in a crossfire. Between two dreadnoughts, Vasquez watched good officers die, their ships becoming expanding clouds of superheated metal and atmosphere. "Return fire," she ordered. All platforms, full bombardment. The human weapons were primitive compared to the hegemony's plasma-raised kinetic railguns, particle beams, and fusion torpedoes that had seemed cutting edge a week ago. But they were fired with a desperation that transformed them into something more. The Prometheus shuddered as its main railgun fired, launching a tungsten slug at a significant fraction of light speed. The projectile struck the nearest dreadnought shields, sending ripples of energy across its protective envelope. For a moment, the alien ship's perfect composure faltered, shields at 60%. Nakamura shouted, "We're actually hurting them," but the hegemony adapted quickly. The damaged dreadnought fell back while its companions adjusted their formation, creating overlapping fields of fire that turned the space around the human fleet into a killing ground. The heavy cruiser Defiant tried to close the distance, its captain hoping to bring the ship's heavy guns to bear, but it was caught in a triangular crossfire that stripped away its shields and armor. In seconds, "Defiant is breaking apart," came the anguished voice from the communications array. "Hull breach on decks for through 7. Reactor containment failing." The cruiser's death was spectacular and terrible. When its fusion reactor finally breached containment, the explosion was visible from Earth's surface, a new star blooming in the constellation of war. That's when Vasquez saw it. The hegemony ships were repositioning themselves, but not randomly. They were forming a perfect hexagonal pattern around Earth, their weapons arrays all pointing downward. They're preparing for total atmospheric bombardment. She realized, they're going to strip our entire atmosphere away in one coordinated strike. The tactical display confirmed her worst fears. Power readings from all 17 dreadnoughts were spiking simultaneously, their plasma arrays charging for a bombardment that would make the destruction of Munich look like a firecracker. "How long?" she asked. 15 minutes until full charge," Nakamura replied. "Once they fire, atmospheric cascade will be irreversible." Vasquez looked at her remaining force of 7 defense platforms to destroyers, and 1 heavy cruiser against 17 alien dreadnoughts. The debris field was expended, the element of surprise lost. By every rational measure, the battle was over, but she had one more card to play, something the hegemony couldn't have anticipated, because it violated every principle of civilized warfare. "Get me a direct line to Terra Command," she ordered. "Tell them to activate the Damocles array." Nakamura went pale. "Ma'am, that's a war crime. The Orbital Bombardment Treaty specifically prohibits. The treaty assumes we're fighting humans." Vasquez cut him off. "These things want to sterilize our planet. Time to show them what human sterilization looks like." She opened the fleet-wide channel. "All units, prepare for Damocles activation in 10 minutes. We're going to drop every piece of orbital infrastructure we have directly onto their heads." The alien fleet continued their charge sequence, unaware that humanity's orbital cities, industrial platforms, and research stations were being evacuated and prepared for one final, desperate gambit. When the sky fell, it would fall with human ingenuity guiding every ton of metal and ceramic down into the heart of the enemy formation. The evacuation of Titan Station took 8 minutes. 8 minutes to move 17,000 civilians from humanity's largest orbital habitat into whatever transport vessels could reach them in time. 8 minutes while the hegemony fleet continued charging their atmosphere-stripping bombardment. Admiral Kovac's voice crackled through the comm channel from Terra Command. Vasquez, are you absolutely certain about this? Damocles will take out half our orbital infrastructure. The economic damage alone. Economic damage won't matter if everyone's dead, Vasquez replied, watching the evacuation shuttle stream away from the massive rotating habitat. How many civilians are still up there? Titan Station reports 300 souls remaining, came the reply from Nakamura. Mostly engineers maintaining the deorbit systems. They're volunteering to stay, the tactical display showed. The brutal mathematics of the situation. The hegemony fleet had positioned themselves in a perfect bombardment formation. Their ships spread across Earth's orbital space in a hexagonal pattern. Each dreadnought was charging its plasma rays for the coordinated strike that would ignite Earth's atmosphere and burn away every trace of life. But they had positioned themselves directly beneath humanity's most massive orbital installations. Confirm. Damocles authorization. Vasquez ordered. All stations, prepare for controlled orbit. The response was immediate and devastating. Titan Station 3 kilometers of rotating habitat housing manufacturing complexes, research laboratories, and hydroponic gardens began its final burn. The massive structure's engines, designed for station keeping, were now pushing it into a collision course with the hegemony. Flagship. Titan Station reporting engine burnout. Came the transmission from the doomed habitat. Trajectory locked. Impact in 6 minutes. But the hegemony had noticed. The nearest dreadnought broke formation, its weapons arrays swiveling to target. The incoming installation, plasma lances reached out like green fingers, slicing through Titan Station's superstructure. Entire sections of the habitat peeled away, tumbling into space as molten fragments. They're shooting it apart. Nakamura shouted. That we give them more targets. Vasquez replied grimly. Execute Damocles full. The sky began to fall. Luna City's industrial complex's sprawling network of manufacturing platforms and mining stations dropped toward the enemy fleet like a metallic rain. The hegemony ships responded with increasing desperation, their plasma arrays firing continuously to destroy the incoming installations before they could impact. The first kill came from an unexpected source. Research Station Galileo, a comparatively small facility dedicated to xenobiology studies, had been overlooked by the alien gunners. Its impact with the hegemony ship cleansing fire was catastrophic. The station's nuclear reactors breached on contact, creating a fusion explosion that consumed both vessels in a brief, terrible star. First blood, Vasquez whispered, watching the expanding fireball. But the victory was Pyrrhic. They had traded humanity's premier research facility for a single enemy ship. The hegemony fleet adapted quickly. The remaining 16 dreadnoughts tightened their formation, creating overlapping fields of defensive fire. When the Luna City industrial complex reached them, they were ready. Plasma arrays fired in synchronized bursts, turning the falling installations into clouds of superheated metal and ceramic. Damocles is failing, Nakamura reported. They're shooting down everything we drop. That's when the second wave of human attacks began. Captain Torres of the heavy cruiser Retribution had been waiting for this moment. As the hegemony ships focused their fire on the falling orbital installations, she led the surviving human fleet in a desperate charge. All vessels, attack pattern Sierra 7, she broadcast. We're going in close. The human ships dove toward the alien fleet, their weapons firing continuously. The destroyer Vengeful managed to close to within 500 meters of a hegemony dreadnought before its fusion torpedoes found their mark. The explosion gutted the alien vessel's forward section, but the Vengeful was consumed in the same blast. Torres to all ships, came the captain's voice over the chaos. We can hurt them, but only at knife fighting range. Their shields are weaker against sustained close-range bombardment. It was a death sentence, and everyone knew it. Getting close enough to damage the hegemony ships meant entering their point defense envelope, where survival was measured in seconds, rather than minutes. The defense platform Sword of Earth made the sacrifice. Commander Yates drove his station directly into the weapons array of the dreadnought purging light, his platform's engines overloading as he rammed the alien vessel. The impact was spectacular. Both ships disappeared in a fusion fireball that lit up the dark side of Earth. To down, Vasquez counted. 15 to go. But the hegemony had had enough. The remaining dreadnoughts abandoned their bombardment pattern and turned their full attention to the human fleet. The space around Earth became a killing field of plasma fire and kinetic death. The destroyer, steadfast, tried to duplicate the vengeful success, but its captain misjudged the approach vector. The ship was caught in a crossfire between 3 dreadnoughts, its whole armor stripped away layer by layer until the fusion reactor finally breached. The explosion was smaller this time. There wasn't enough ship left to create a proper fireball. We're down to 6 platforms and 1 cruiser, Nakamura reported, his voice hollow. And they're still charging their atmosphere weapons. Vasquez looked at the tactical display. Despite their sacrifices, the hegemony still had 15 operational dreadnoughts. Worse, the aliens had learned from the human attacks and were now positioning themselves to minimize the effectiveness of ramming attacks. Mum, came a new voice from the communications array. We're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's from Geneva Command. The image that appeared on the main screen was one Vasquez had hoped never to see, General Morrison, the head of Earth's Strategic Weapons Command, standing in what was clearly a hardened bunker. Behind him, technicians worked frantically at control stations marked with radiation warnings. Commander Vasquez, Morrison said, his voice heavy with the weight of ultimate responsibility. We're authorizing deployment of the Prometheus weapons. All of them. Vasquez felt the blood drain from her face. The Prometheus weapons were humanity's most closely guarded secret antimatter warheads of unprecedented destructive power, hidden in concealed bunkers across Earth's surface. Their existence violated every arms control treaty humanity had ever signed. Sir, she said carefully, the fallout from 15 antimatter detonations in orbit will be less than the fallout from losing our entire atmosphere. Morrison cut her off. We're out of options, Commander. Make them count. The first, Prometheus missile launched from a concealed silo in the Australian outback. It's a antimatter warhead containing enough concentrated destruction to sterilize a continent. Vasquez watched its trajectory on a tactical display as it climbed toward the hegemony fleet. Its exhaust plume visible even from orbit. Time to target, 47 seconds, Nakamura reported. The hegemony ships are adjusting position to intercept. The alien response was immediate and overwhelming. Every dreadnought in the fleet turned its weapons toward the ascending missile, their plasma arrays creating a wall of green fire that reached down toward Earth's surface. But the Prometheus missile had been designed to penetrate the most sophisticated defenses humanity could imagine. The warhead's casing began to shed layers as it climbed, each discarded section creating a cloud of chaff and decoy signals. Micro-thrusters fired in random sequences, making the missile's trajectory impossible to predict. When the first plasma lances reached it, they struck nothing but empty space and metallic debris. 30 seconds to impact, Vasquez announced over the fleet-wide channel. All units, prepare for a antimatter detonation. The hegemony ships tried to scatter, but their formation was too tight. When the Prometheus warhead finally reached its target, the geometric center of their fleet, the explosion was unlike anything in the history of warfare. Matter and antimatter annihilated each other in a flash of pure energy that briefly outshone the sun. The expanding sphere of destruction consumed everything within a radius of 50 kilometers, including 3 hegemony dreadnoughts that simply ceased to exist. The shock wave that followed sent the remaining alien ships tumbling through space. Like leaves in a hurricane, Jesus, whispered Nakamura, staring at the expanding cloud of plasma where the center of the enemy fleet had been. His words were cut off as the hegemony fleet's response arrived. The surviving 12 dreadnoughts had abandoned all pretense of formation or tactical sophistication. Their plasma arrays fired continuously, not at specific targets, but at everything in Earth's orbital space, satellites, space stations, defense platforms. Anything that moved was targeted and destroyed. The defense platform Aegis was the first to die, its shields overwhelmed by the concentrated fire of 4 dreadnoughts. The Sword of Damocles followed seconds later, its crew managing to fire one final salvo before their reactor core was breached by a plasma lance. They're going insane, Captain Torres reported from the Retribution, her voice tight with fear. They're not even trying to preserve their formation anymore. They're just killing everything. That's when the second wave of Prometheus missiles launched. This time, the hegemony was ready. The alien ships had learned from the first attack. Their defensive patterns adapted to intercept the antimatter warheads. Before they could reach their targets, plasma fire reached down from orbit like the fingers of an angry god, intercepting the missiles while they were still climbing through Earth's atmosphere. The result was catastrophic. 7 antimatter warheads detonated in Earth's upper atmosphere, creating a chain reaction of electromagnetic pulses that knocked out communications across 3 continents. The auroral displays that followed were beautiful and terrible curtains of light that danced across the sky as the planet's magnetic field struggled to contain the energies unleashed. Communications are down across 70% of the surface, reported the communications officer. We've lost contact with Geneva Command, Beijing Control, and most of the launch sites, but the atmospheric detonations had an unexpected effect. The hegemony ships, which had been diving toward Earth to better intercept the Prometheus missiles, suddenly found themselves trapped within the planet's magnetic field. The antimatter explosions had created a maze of charged particles and electromagnetic disturbances that interfered with their propulsion systems. They're trapped, Vasquez realized. The atmospheric detonations created a magnetic bottle. They can't escape to hyperspace while the field is this disrupted. It was a double-edged discovery. The hegemony fleet was trapped, but so were the remaining human ships. Worse, the alien dreadnoughts were now close enough to Earth to begin their final bombardment. The third wave of Prometheus missiles never made it off the ground. The hegemony fleet, now in low Earth orbit, began targeting the launch sites directly. Plasma beams reached down from space, turning missile silos into craters and launch facilities into molten glass. Prometheus launch sites at Colorado Springs and Vandenberg are offline. Came the report from Terra Command. We've lost 60% of our antimatter arsenal. That's when Captain Torres made her decision. The Retribution had been damaged in the electromagnetic chaos following the atmospheric detonations, its shields failing and its weapons systems operating at reduced capacity. But it still had one advantage. It was close enough to the hegemony fleet to matter. All remaining ships, she broadcast. This is Torres. I'm going to ram the flagship, cover my approach. The surviving human vessels' 3 defense platforms and to destroy us through everything they had. At the hegemony flagship, trying to clear a path for the Retribution suicide run. The alien ship's shields flared and sparked under the concentrated bombardment, but held. Torres pushed her engines beyond their design limits. The Retribution accelerating toward the massive dreadnought at a rate that would have crushed her crew if not for the ship's failing inertial dampeners. Plasma fire reached out to stop her, but the other human ships continued their covering fire, forcing the aliens to divide their attention. Retribution to all ships, Torres transmitted, her voice calm despite the situation. It's been an honor serving with you all. Tell Earth, tell them we didn't go quietly. The impact was visible from the surface. The Retribution struck the hegemony flagship amidships, its fusion reactor breaching on contact. The explosion tore through both vessels, but the alien dreadnought's superior construction allowed it to survive. Though crippled at listing, Torres is gone, Nakamura reported unnecessarily. But the flagship is heavily damaged. Its weapons systems are offline. Vasquez looked at the tactical display. 11 operational hegemony dreadnoughts remained, now in low orbit around Earth. Her force was down to 3 defense platforms and 1 destroyer. The Prometheus missile sites were mostly destroyed, the orbital installations were gone, and the planet's atmosphere was still burning from the initial bombardment. "Ma'am," came a new voice from the communication station. "We're receiving a transmission from the lunar colonies. They're launching something." The image that appeared on the screen was of Administrator Chan standing in what looked like a mining facility's control room. Behind her, massive industrial machinery hummed with purposeful energy. "Commander Vasquez," Chen said, "we've been watching the battle from Luna. We can't help much, but we can give you one last gift. We're launching every piece of processed ore in our inventory directly at the hegemony fleet. It's not much, but how much mass?" Vasquez interrupted. "Approximately 2 million tons of refined metals and rare earth elements, impact in 7 minutes." Vasquez smiled for the first time in hours. The hegemony ships, trapped in Earth's magnetic field and focused on the surface bombardment, wouldn't see the lunar cargo pods coming until it was too late. "All units," she announced, "prepare for final engagement. We're going to use the lunar bombardment as cover for one last attack. If we're going to die, we're taking as many of these bastards with us as possible." The lunar cargo pods arrived. like a metallic storm. 2 million tons of refined and processed metal screaming through space at 27 kilometers per second. The hegemony fleet, concentrated in low Earth orbit for their final bombardment, had less than 30 seconds to respond. Impact in 20 seconds, Nakamura reported, his voice tight with anticipation. Hegemony fleet is scrambling to intercept. The alien ship's plasma rays swiveled upward, their defensive systems struggling to track the incoming projectiles. But the cargo pods were small, numerous, and moving at relativistic speeds. For every pod destroyed by alien fire, 10 more slipped through the defensive net. The first impacts were spectacular. Cargo pods filled with tungsten or struck the dreadnought cleansing flame. With the force of tactical nuclear weapons, the alien ship's shields flared and collapsed, its hull, armor cracking under the relentless bombardment. A second wave of pods, these carrying refined titanium from Luna's deep mines, punched through the compromised armor and exploded inside the ship's superstructure. Direct hit. Vasquez shouted, "Cleansing flame is breaking apart." The hegemony, dreadnought twisted in space, its perfect geometric form now a twisted wreck leaking atmosphere and molten metal. Secondary explosions rippled through its hull as cargo pods continued to rain down, each impact further degrading the ship's structural integrity. But the lunar bombardment was a double-edged sword. The cargo pods were indiscriminate, and several human vessels found themselves caught in the crossfire. The destroyer Vengeful Spirit took a direct hit from a pod containing rare earth elements, the impact shearing away its forward section and leaving the ship spinning helplessly through space. "Vengeful Spirit is gone," reported the communications officer. "Captain Martinez didn't make it." The chaos provided the perfect cover for the final human assault. Vasquez led the charge herself, the Prometheus diving toward the damaged hegemony flagship while the alien ships were distracted by the ongoing bombardment. The defense platforms Aegis and Sword of Earth followed, their remaining weapons systems firing continuously. "Target the flagship's weapons arrays," Vasquez ordered. "If we can disable their main guns, we might be able to." The sentence was cut short as 3 hegemony dreadnoughts broke free from the lunar bombardment and turned their attention to the human attack. Plasma fire reached out across space, striking the Sword of Earth amidships. The platform's shields held for exactly 3 seconds before collapsing, allowing the alien weapons to tear through the ship's hull like paper. "Sword of Earth is vending atmosphere," came the desperate transmission from Commander Yates. "We've lost main power. Reactor containment is failing." The platform's death was swift and final. When its fusion reactor breached, the explosion was bright enough to be visible from Earth's surface, adding another star to the constellation of battle. But the sacrifice wasn't in vain. The Prometheus had reached the hegemony flagship, its weapons systems targeting the massive ship's already damaged weapons arrays. Railgun slugs and particle beams hammered at the alien vessel's exposed superstructure, each hit sending cascades of sparks and debris into space. "Their forward plasma ray is offline," Nakamura reported. "Moderate damage to their shield generators." The flagship's response was immediate and brutal. The massive ship's remaining weapons arrays turned toward the Prometheus, their plasma lances reaching out to eliminate the troublesome human vessel. But the lunar bombardment continued, and several cargo pods struck the flagship's weapons just as they fired, disrupting the plasma beams and causing them to miss their target. "Thank you, Luna," Vasquez whispered, watching the deflected plasma beams streak harmlessly past her ship. The battle had become a 3-way dance of death. The hegemony fleet struggled to maintain formation while defending against the lunar bombardment. The human vessels darted between the cargo pods, using them as cover while striking at the alien ships, and Earth itself continued to burn, its atmosphere lit by the ongoing plasma bombardment. The defense platform Aegis made a desperate run at the dreadnought purging light, its captain hoping to replicate the success of earlier ramming attacks. But the alien ship was ready. Plasma fire reached out to intercept the platform, but the Aegis had dumped its entire reactor output into its forward shields. The plasma beams struck the shield envelope and scattered, their energy dissipated harmlessly into space. "Aegis is through," Nakamura shouted. "They're going to impact." The collision was catastrophic. The Aegis struck the purging light at full ramming speed, its bow section crumpling as it punched through the alien ship's hull. The platform's fusion reactor, already overloaded, breached on contact. The explosion consumed both vessels in a fireball that briefly rivaled the sun in intensity. "That's 3 enemy ships down," Vasquez counted. 9 to go. But the human fleet was dying. The Prometheus was alone now, the last human vessel in the battle. Its shields were failing, its weapon systems operating at reduced capacity, and its crew was exhausted from hours of continuous combat. The hegemony fleet began to close in, their formation tightening as they prepared to finish off the last human ship. But they had underestimated the lunar bombardment's duration. The cargo pods continued to rain down, their impacts creating a chaos of debris and energy that made precise targeting impossible. "Commander," came a new voice from the communication station. "We're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's from the Southern Hemisphere Defense Command." The image that appeared on the screen was of General Harrison standing in what looked like a command bunker deep underground. Behind him, technicians worked frantically at control stations that pulsed with ominous red lights. "Commander Vasquez," Harrison said, his voice grim, "we've been monitoring the battle from our hardened sights. We have one final option, but it's extreme." "How extreme?" Vasquez asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "We're going to detonate the remaining Prometheus warheads simultaneously in Earth's upper atmosphere. The electromagnetic pulse will disable every electronic system in orbit, including our own, but it will also create a magnetic field disruption that should force the hegemony ships out of our orbital space." Vasquez understood immediately. It was a desperate gambit that would cripple both fleets, but it might give Earth time to rebuild its defenses. "How long do we have?" she asked. 30 seconds, Harrison replied. "I'm sorry, Commander. There's no time to evacuate." Vasquez looked around the bridge of the Prometheus at her crewmen and women, who had served with distinction in the face of impossible odds. They had given everything for Earth, and now they would give their lives as well. "All hands," she announced over the ship's intercom. "This is the commander. It's been an honor serving with you all. We've shown these bastards what humans can do when we're pushed too far. Now we're going to show them what we're willing to sacrifice." The antimatter warheads detonated simultaneously, 15 points of pure energy that turned Earth's upper atmosphere into a cauldron of electromagnetic chaos. The pulse that followed was visible from space, a wave of energy that reached out to embrace every artificial object in orbit. The Prometheus died. First, its systems failing in cascading waves as the electromagnetic pulse overloaded every circuit aboard the ship. But the hegemony fleet fared no better. Their advanced technology, designed to operate in the clean vacuum of space, couldn't handle the electromagnetic storm that now raged through Earth's orbital space. One by one, the alien dreadnoughts went dark, their perfect geometric forms now nothing more than metal tubes drifting through space. The magnetic field disruption was already beginning to push them away from Earth, the planet's electromagnetic envelope rejecting the alien presence. Like antibodies fighting an infection dot as the Prometheus fell toward Earth's atmosphere, its systems dead and its crew unconscious from the electromagnetic pulse. Vasquez managed one final transmission. "Earth, this is Prometheus. The sky is clear. The sky is clear." The Prometheus fell through Earth's atmosphere like a dying star, its hull heating to incandescence as it encountered the thickening air. Inside the ship, emergency systems flickered to life as the electromagnetic pulse finally dissipated. But it was too late. The platform was committed to its final descent. Vasquez regained consciousness as the first atmospheric turbulence hit. The ship, around her, the bridge crew was beginning to stir, their faces lit by the hellish glow of reentry plasma streaming past the viewports. "Status report," she croaked, her voice hoarse from the electromagnetic shock. "We're falling," Nakamura replied unnecessarily, pulling himself back into his seat. "Altitude 40 kilometers and descending. The EMP fried our main engines, but we still have maneuvering thrusters. The hegemony fleet drifting. All ships appear to be non-operational. The magnetic field disruption is pushing them away from Earth." But slowly, Vasquez studied the tactical display, amazed that it was still functioning. The 9 surviving hegemony dreadnoughts hung in space like dead metal, their systems apparently as vulnerable to electromagnetic pulses as human technology. But they were beginning to move, their hulls rotating slowly as they drifted away from Earth. "How long before they're out of our orbital space?" she asked. 12 hours, maybe less." "But Commander," Nakamura's voice trailed off as new contacts appeared on the tactical display. "They're launching something, smaller craft, maybe escape pods." The truth was worse than escape pods. As the Prometheus continued its controlled descent, The sensors detected hundreds of small vessels launching from the disabled hegemony dreadnoughts. They were landing craft. Vasquez realized the aliens were abandoning their dead ships and heading for Earth's surface. "They're not retreating," she said grimly. "They're invading." The first landing craft reached Earth's surface while the Prometheus was still fighting its way through the upper atmosphere. The alien vessels, each carrying what appeared to be several dozen soldiers, scattered across the planet's surface. Most headed for the major population centers, what was left of them. After the initial bombardment, "Give me Terra command," Vasquez ordered, fighting against the increasing G-forces as the ship continued its descent. "They need to know what's coming." The communication was fragmentary, interrupted by static and the electromagnetic interference still lingering in Earth's atmosphere. But the message got through. The hegemony was shifting from orbital bombardment to ground invasion. "Prometheus, this is General Harrison," came the crackling response. "We're tracking the landing craft. Initial estimates suggest 10,000 enemy soldiers, possibly more. They're targeting our remaining military installations and population centers." "What's our ground defense situation?" Vasquez asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "Compromised. The imp knocked out most of our communication networks and vehicle systems. We're fighting with whatever wasn't fried, mostly small arms and manually operated equipment." The Prometheus shuddered as its hull encountered a particularly dense layer of atmosphere. Through the viewports, Vasquez could see the curve of Earth's horizon, scarred now by the green fires that continued to burn in the upper atmosphere. But she could also see something else: lights, cities that were still functioning, areas where the electromagnetic pulse hadn't reached or where backup systems had come online. "We're not dead yet," she murmured. "Nakamura, can we control our descent trajectory?" "Minimally. We've got maybe one course correction before we lose the ability to maneuver entirely." Vasquez studied the tactical display, noting the concentration of hegemony landing craft around the ruins of major cities. The aliens were systematic, methodical. They were trying to finish what their orbital bombardment had started by eliminating any remaining human resistance on the ground. "Set course for the Colorado military installation," she ordered. "If we're going down, we're going down fighting." The Prometheus adjusted its trajectory slightly, aiming for the massive underground complex that housed one of Earth's primary military command centers. The facility had been built to survive nuclear war, its systems hardened against electromagnetic pulses, and its reactors buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. As the ship descended through the lower atmosphere, Vasquez got her first clear look at the ground invasion. The hegemony forces weren't like the mechanical precision of their fleet. They were something else entirely. Through the ship's sensors, she could see them moving across the landscape in organic, flowing patterns that reminded her more of a swarm than an army. "They're not soldiers," she realized. "They're some kind of bioweapon." The first ground battles were already underway. Human military units, their vehicles and communication systems, crippled by the electromagnetic pulse, were fighting with whatever weapons they could manage to operate manually. The results were predictably one-sided. "We're receiving reports from ground units," came the transmission from Terra Command. "The enemy forces are adaptive. They're learning from each engagement, modifying their tactics in real time." The Prometheus reached the Colorado military installation with barely enough control to avoid crashing directly into the mountains. The ship's emergency landing systems, designed for controlled crashes on hostile planets, deployed at the last moment. The impact was still tremendous. The platform skidded across the mountainside for nearly a kilometer before coming to rest against a boulder field. "All hands, sound off," Vasquez ordered, pulling herself from the wreckage of her command chair. Around her, the bridge was a twisted maze of sparking electronics and bent metal, but most of her crew had survived. "Engineering reports 60% casualties," came the reply from the damage control teams, "but we've still got power to essential systems. Weapons, the main railgun is intact, and we've got manual control over the particle beam arrays. The ammunition fabricators are offline, but we've got enough rounds in storage for maybe 2 hours of sustained combat." Vasquez nodded grimly. 2 hours might be enough. Through the ship's external cameras, she could see hegemony landing craft descending toward the military installation like metallic locusts. Whatever was inside them, it was coming for the last organized resistance on Earth. "All crew to combat stations," she announced. "We're no longer a ship, we're a fortress, and we're going to show these aliens what humans do when they're cornered." The First hegemony forces reached the Prometheus within an hour. They were unlike anything in human military doctrine flowing. Adaptive organisms that seemed to shift between different forms as they moved. Some appeared almost humanoid, while others resembled mechanical spiders or floating jellyfish. All of them pulsed with the same green energy that had characterized the alien plasma weapons. "What are we looking at?" Nakamura asked, studying the sensor readings. "Evolution in real time," Vasquez replied. "They're adapting to our environment, to our weapons, to our tactics. Each generation is learning from the last." The battle for the Colorado military installation began at dawn. The hegemony forces approached in waves, each one slightly different from the last. The first wave was met by the installation's automated defenses machine gun nests and missile launchers that had been hardened against electromagnetic pulses. The alien organisms fell in droves, their forms dissolving into puddles of luminescent fluid. But the second wave was different. The organisms had developed thicker armor, their bodies now resistant to small arms fire. The automated defenses did less damage, and more of the aliens reached the installation's outer perimeter. "They're learning," reported Major Collins, the installation's commanding officer. "Each wave is more effective than the last." That's when Vasquez made her decision. The Prometheus couldn't move, but its weapons were still operational. She aimed the ship's main railgun directly at the approaching alien horde and fired. The tungsten slug, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, struck the ground in the center of the hegemony formation. The kinetic impact created a crater 50 meters across and vaporized everything within a 100-meter radius. The shock wave that followed knocked down aliens across the entire battlefield. "Direct hit," Nakamura reported, "but they're already adapting. The next wave is spreading out, avoiding concentrated formations." The third wave of hegemony forces approached the installation from multiple directions simultaneously, their forms now elongated and swift, darting between cover to avoid the Prometheus's weapons. Some had developed the ability to burrow underground, emerging inside the installation's defensive perimeter. "We're being flanked," Major Collins reported. "The aliens are inside the outer compound." The battle became a desperate close-quarters engagement. Human soldiers, armed with whatever weapons they could find, fought alien organisms that changed and adapted with each passing minute. Rifles that had been effective against the first wave became useless as the aliens developed energy-absorbing skin. Explosives that had devastated early formations were countered by organisms that could disperse and reform after detonation. There in the lower levels came the frantic transmission from the installation security teams. "The aliens are heading for the reactor complex." Vasquez realized with growing horror what the hegemony was attempting. They weren't just trying to eliminate human resistance. They were trying to capture Earth's remaining infrastructure intact. The organisms were studying human technology, learning how to operate it. "All stations," she announced, "prepare for reactor overload. If they want our installation, they can have it along with a fusion explosion that'll take out half the mountain." But before the order could be executed, something unexpected happened. The hegemony forces suddenly stopped their advance, their forms freezing in place as if receiving new instructions through the ship's sensors. Vasquez could see them beginning to withdraw, flowing back toward their landing craft in the same organic patterns they had used to attack. "They're retreating," Nakamura said, disbelief evident in his voice. Why would they retreat when they were winning? The answer came from an unexpected source, the ship's deep space sensors, which had somehow survived the electromagnetic pulse. New contacts were appearing at the edge of the solar system, human contacts. "This is Admiral Chen aboard the heavy cruiser Defiance," came the transmission. "With the Titan fleet, returning from the Proxima Centauri expedition. We've been monitoring the battle from the outer system. All human forces, prepare for immediate orbital support." Vasquez felt hope kindle in her chest for the first time in days. The Titan fleet welf ships that had been exploring humanity's first interstellar colony. When the hegemony arrived, they were small compared to the alien dreadnoughts, but they were fresh, undamaged, and spoiling for a fight. "Admiral Chen," she transmitted, "this is Commander Vasquez aboard the Prometheus. Be advised, the enemy fleet is disabled but not destroyed. They've launched ground forces across the planet." "Understood, Commander. We're going to show these aliens what happens when they pick a fight with humanity's children." The hegemony organisms continued their withdrawal, abandoning their assault on the Colorado military installation. As their motherships detected the approaching human fleet, But Vasquez knew this was only a temporary reprieve. The aliens were regrouping, adapting, preparing for the next phase of the battle. The Titan fleet arrived like angels of vengeance, their ships blazing across the solar system with engines pushed beyond safe operational limits. Admiral Chen had spent 3 days accelerating from the outer system, burning through fuel reserves that should have lasted months. Driven by the desperate transmissions from Earth, all ships, attack formation Delta 7, Chen broadcast as her fleet entered Earth's orbital space. Target the disabled hegemony vessels. I want every one of those dreadnoughts reduced to scrap metal. The alien ships hung in space like dead whales, their systems still offline from the electromagnetic pulse, but they weren't defenseless as the human fleet approached. Automated systems began to flicker back to life aboard the hegemony dreadnoughts. Their recovery faster than expected, reported Captain Martinez from the destroyer Vindication. Enemy vessels are showing signs of power restoration. Then we hit them before they can fight back, Chen replied grimly. All ships, weapons, free, show no mercy. The Titan fleet opened fire with every weapon they possessed. Particle beams, kinetic projectiles, and fusion torpedoes rained down on the helpless hegemony vessels. The first dreadnought, cleansing fire, came apart under the concentrated bombardment, its hull splitting open like an overripe fruit. The second, purging light, managed to raise partial shields before the human weapons found their mark, but it only delayed the inevitable. From her position aboard the crashed Prometheus, Vasquez watched the orbital battle through the ship surviving. Sensors, each hegemony dreadnought that died was a victory, but she knew the real fight was still happening on Earth's surface. Major Collins. She called to the installation's commander. What's the situation with the ground forces? The aliens are regrouping, Collins replied. They've withdrawn to defensive positions around their landing sites. Our satellites are picking up some kind of construction activity. They're building something. The truth became clear as reconnaissance drones reached the hegemony landing sites. The aliens weren't just building defensive positions, they were constructing what appeared to be massive organic structures that pulse with the same green energy as their weapons, their terraforming devices. Vasquez realized they're trying to transform Earth's atmosphere to match their own requirements. The implications were terrifying. Even if humanity managed to destroy the hegemony fleet, the ground-based terraforming devices could still poison Earth's atmosphere, making the planet uninhabitable for human life. Admiral Chen, Vasquez transmitted, we have a priority target. List on the surface. The aliens are attempting to terraform our planet. Copy that. Commander, we're going to provide orbital bombardment support, but we need precise targeting coordinates. Our weapons are too powerful for indiscriminate use near populated areas. That's when the plan came together. The Prometheus, despite being crashed and partially destroyed, still had its most sophisticated sensor arrays operational. Vasquez could provide targeting data for the Titan fleet's orbital bombardment, guiding their weapons to the alien terraforming sites with precision that would minimize collateral damage. All stations, she announced to her crew, we're going to coordinate the largest orbital bombardment in human history. Each shot has to count. We may not get a second chance. The first strike targeted the terraforming facility outside the ruins of Berlin, the heavy cruiser Retribution, to launch the spread of kinetic projectiles that struck the alien structure with the force of a small asteroid impact. The facility disappeared in a fireball that was visible from orbit, taking with it several square kilometers of alien organisms. But the hegemony responded immediately. The surviving terraforming sites began to emit a defensive barrier, a shimmering dome of energy that deflected the human orbital bombardment. Worse, the alien ground forces began to move, not randomly, but with the same systematic precision that had characterized their fleet. Movements, they're adapting again, Major Collins reported. The ground forces are consolidating around the remaining terraforming sites. They're using themselves as living shields. The battle became a race against time. Each terraforming facility that remained operational was slowly but steadily changing Earth's atmospheric composition. The green fires that had started with the orbital bombardment were spreading, fed by the alien devices that were converting oxygen and nitrogen into something that could support hegemony life. How long before atmospheric conversion becomes irreversible? Vasquez asked her science officer. 6 hours, came the grim reply. Maybe less if they activate additional facilities. That's when humanity played its final card. Deep beneath the Colorado military installation, in vaults that had been sealed since the early days of the space program, lay weapons that predated the orbital bombardment treaty, weapons so destructive that their very existence had been classified. Beyond the highest security levels, Commander, General Harrison's voice crackled through the communications array. We're authorizing deployment of the Genesis arsenal, full sterilization protocols. Vasquez felt her blood run cold. The Genesis weapons were designed to cleanse entire planets of life, weapons that could kill every living thing on Earth's surface, while leaving the infrastructure intact. They had never been tested on a planetary scale, and their effects were largely theoretical. Sir, she said carefully, the collateral damage from Genesis deployment will be less than the collateral damage from losing our planet. Harrison cut her off. The terraforming process is accelerating. If we don't stop it in the next 4 hours, Earth becomes uninhabitable for human life. The Genesis missiles launched from hidden silos across the planet. They're biological payloads designed to target the specific cellular structure of the hegemony organisms. Each warhead contained engineered viruses that would attack the aliens' adaptive capabilities, preventing them from evolving resistance. The first missile struck the terraforming facility outside Tokyo. The explosion was small compared to the antimatter warheads used earlier, but its effects were immediate and devastating. The alien organisms surrounding the facility simply stopped. They didn't die in any conventional sense, they just ceased to function. Their adaptive biology overwhelmed by the Genesis virus. Direct hit on Target 7, reported the Titan. Fleet, alien activity has ceased across a 50-kilometer radius. One by one, the Genesis missiles found their targets. The terraforming facilities fell silent, their organic components dissolving as the engineered virus spread through their biological systems. The green fires that had been consuming Earth's atmosphere began to fade, their alien fuel sources eliminated. The final hegemony stronghold was the largest terraforming facility, located in what had once been the Amazon rainforest. The alien organisms had concentrated their remaining forces around this site, creating a living wall of adaptive biology that seemed impervious to conventional weapons. This is the big one, Admiral Chen transmitted. If we can take out this facility, we end their terraforming capability permanently. The Titan fleet concentrated their fire on the Amazon site, but the alien defenses held. The organisms had learned from the earlier Genesis attacks, developing countermeasures that neutralized the biological weapons before they could spread. That's when Vasquez made her final decision. The Prometheus still had one weapon left, its fusion reactor, damaged but still functional. She could overload it, creating an explosion that would sterilize the entire Amazon basin and eliminate the last hegemony. Stronghold, all hands, abandon ship, she ordered. I'm going to overload the reactor manually, Commander, Nakamura protested. The radiation exposure from manual overload will be lethal. I know, Vasquez replied quietly, but someone has to do it, and someone has to make sure it's done right. She made her way through the twisted corridors of the crashed ship, past the bodies of crew members who had died in the landing, past the sparking electronics and failing life support systems. The reactor chamber was deep in the ship's core, its massive fusion containment system humming with barely contained energy. The manual overload sequence was complex, requiring her to bypass multiple safety systems while exposing herself to lethal levels of radiation. As she worked, she could hear the reports from the surface battle filtering through the ship's communications. The hegemony forces were beginning their final assault on human positions across the planet. Overload sequence initiated, she reported. Detonation in 60 seconds. The explosion lit up the South American continent. The Prometheus's fusion reactor, pushed beyond all safety limits, released the equivalent energy of 100 nuclear weapons in a single instant. The blast wave sterilized everything within a 1,000-kilometer radius, eliminating the final hegemony terraforming facility and the alien organisms defending it. When the radiation cleared, Earth's atmosphere began to heal itself. The green fires faded, replaced by the blue skies that humanity had thought were lost forever. The hegemony invasion was over, their fleet destroyed and their ground forces eliminated. But the cost had been enormous. Billions of humans were dead, entire continents were scarred by the battle, and Earth's orbital infrastructure was in ruins. The planet would need decades to recover from the war. In the aftermath, as rescue teams picked through the wreckage of the Prometheus, they found Commander Vasquez's final log entry. This is Commander Elena Vasquez. Final entry: the skies are clear, Earth endures. We showed them what humans are capable of when pushed to the brink, not just our weapons or our technology, but our willingness to sacrifice everything for our world. They came to sterilize us, to correct us, to erase us from existence. Instead, they learned that humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology, it's our refusal to surrender, even in the face of extinction. Let this be a warning to any who would threaten our world. Earth's skies may burn, but our Skyfires burn brighter. The war was over. Humanity had survived, and somewhere in the depths of space, any civilizations that might have been watching learned a valuable lesson. When you attack Earth's skies, you had better be prepared for humanity's Skyfires to burn back twice as hot. Earth would rebuild, stronger, more determined, and ready for whatever the universe might throw at them next.